Hello and welcome to the This is Ibrox podcast. This is our post-match reaction to an absolutely disastrous night at Ibrox, where Liverpool have just defeated the Rangers by 7-1. Yes, 7-1. That is correct. So we're here to give our thoughts on all of that tonight. So we've actually got two of our usual hosts, to be honest, but they're guests tonight. So that's great. First of all, we've got Adam Robertson. Adam, how are you?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, obviously watched that for 90 minutes and it was fine for 45 and then not so fine for the last 45.
Yeah, fine's a pretty reasonable answer right now, to be fair. Craig, how about you? Craig, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm probably a wee bit more positive than most Rangers fans seem to be after that result. But yeah, sore one to take tonight. And quicker we're out the Champions League, the better.
Yeah, I think that's the way I feel at the moment as well. But we'll get started because there is actually a lot to get through. It's not the way I thought that this post-match would be at half-time, to be honest with you. But there's quite a few goals to look at, probably more negative than positive, let's be honest here. But we'll have a wee look just before we get started. I think it's good to sit back, take a wee look at how you were feeling before the game. I'll come to you first, Craig. What were your feelings towards the game? Obviously, you've seen the lineup for tonight. I think most people were quite positive, and obviously Liverpool have rested some players this evening. Obviously, brought them on in the second half, but it was a weakened Liverpool side. How did you feel going into the game tonight?
Yeah, going into the game after seeing the start lineups, I think I said to all you guys, I think it was we can make a game of this here. I felt last week at Anfield it was just a case of damage limitation and keep the score down. But this week I felt that the way we'd set up, we were more attacking, we were looking to be more open and more on the front foot. And the fact that Liverpool had rested quite a few of their bigger players or their first team players, which sadly they brought on with 20 minutes to go for some apparent reason. But they'd rested quite a few of them, and I thought actually, if we target down the full back areas, which we seem to do straight from the start, every Alan McGregor kick was going to one side or the other in terms of full backs. I think that's the first time I've ever seen Fashion Sakala targeted to win headers for the full game. But ultimately, at the start of the game, I was quite positive about it. I was a bit concerned about, obviously, there was the clamour before the game for us to be more on the front foot and to come out a bit more and to be more attacking. With that comes risk. And I think tonight we saw the other side of the risk that comes with. We were unfortunate with injuries. I think Conor Goldson going off injured is a huge one in this game, but not only for this game, but going forward as well for us, for the rest of however long he might be out. And then Ryan Jack going off as well had a major impact on that. Couple that with Liverpool finding a new lease of life in the second half and bringing on Salah, Jota, Thiago and Andy Robertson with 20 minutes to go. I think the writing was on the wall a wee bit by that point. Score was 3-1 with 16 minutes to go. You kind of like just see it out, but every time Liverpool went forward after that point, they scored, or they looked like they were scoring. So I'm probably more positive about it than negative, to be honest. I think we've seen how big a golfing class there is between us and the rest of the teams in the group. We're in a ridiculously hard group. I think we can't forget that. We showed what we could do. We just don't have the quality or potentially the fitness to keep it going for 90 minutes against a team of that level.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying there, especially the golf, I think, was on show tonight. I think a lot of people were quietly confident going into this group. You know, you've maybe avoided. I think there's a group with Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and Inter Milan in it. So we managed to avoid a group like that, and you see these teams come out, and you think, I know a lot of people were quietly confident, and I think this is the golf that you're seeing now. What about yourself, Adam? You know, I think it's difficult. You know, the question I've asked right there was the kind of pre-match thoughts, and it is very difficult now that you've watched that to really take a step back and think, you know, what was I feeling before the game? But were you confident, or did you feel kind of the same as Craig that golf was maybe going to be shown tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I was maybe quite as positive as Craig in terms of thinking the Rangers were going to get too much out of it. I just couldn't help but think back to last week where, barring a goalkeeping masterclass, it could have feasibly been 4 or 5. I think it would be fair to say. I felt, to be honest, towards that last half an hour, Liverpool were just more clinical than they were last week. I know that McGregor made a couple of outstanding saves, but there was also a couple of occasions where I thought, Nunez or Jota or whoever it was should have just been more clinical. I think they probably made about 4 saves. I think 2 of them probably should have just been goals if the striker was slightly better. I think obviously going into tonight, we were expecting a different type of performance, which is certainly what we got. And when the first goal came, I wasn't too surprised based on the first 15 minutes. Rangers were winning a lot of second balls and had certainly taken the game to Liverpool more than they did at Anfield, which is understandable. But yeah, I don't think I was ever too confident that they were going to get a huge amount out of it. I mean, at half time, I suppose you think, can they replicate that in the first half? But you look at Liverpool's bench, and I appreciate that Liverpool's bench is, it's heightened slightly because obviously, Mohamed Salah would normally start for them, and Thiago would as well, Andy Robertson when he's fit. But I mean, I think Diaz is injured for them at the minute, so feasibly their 4th choice forward is probably Diogo Jota at the minute, I would assume, and they paid £35 million for him. So I think the gulf really just became quite evident, as you say. And you look at the group, and I think we're Napoli in pot 3.
Yeah. So
I mean, if they are, in inverted commas, the 3rd best team in the group, which they've clearly shown they're not, they've been the best team over the last few games. But if that's what you're up against, then it's always going to be a huge ask. I don't want to kind of come out with loads of excuses. I certainly wouldn't excuse the last kind of 20 minutes of the performance where just really needlessly and carelessly giving the ball away. But I do think that ultimately when they're bringing that level of quality off the bench in comparison to Rangers, it was always going to be a very, very big ask.
Yeah, I think what you spoke about there, I think that's probably where the frustration with most people come is the last maybe 20, 30 minutes of that game, because I think we can all say at halftime we probably felt that Rangers competed. And I think for me personally, that's all I was looking for from this Champions League campaign, was for the team to just compete and show that we are capable of playing, at least close to the level. Maybe we can't play at that level consistently, but just show that we have that ability to maybe get there. But yeah, you've seen tonight. I mean, I think the statistic is floating around on Twitter. I've seen 1.8 XG for Liverpool tonight. I think the kind of stats that I use, our website I use, has got it at 2.34, but they've scored 7 goals. And it really just sums up that if you give these teams chances and you make mistakes, they will punish you. It's not an if, they will. And we've seen that tonight. But what we'll try and do is we'll try and take a run through of this game. I'm conscious that if we analyse every single goal, we'll probably be here till maybe like 1, 2 in the morning. And I think most people are going to want to listen to this tonight and then just maybe move on from this, right? So I'll try and keep things short. We'll just pick up on some of the goals, maybe just to try and squeeze some things together, right? So, I mean, I've got some notes here about our start of the game. Good chance for Sakala, I've got written down. Kent had a curling effort. Felt that we were pressing quite well. I also seen from that, the kind of first 15 minutes, how good Liverpool were under pressure. They were just playing through us at times. How did you feel we started I'll come to you in this one, Alan. How did you feel we started the game? Again, I know it's a difficult question, but how do you feel that, the first 15, 20 minutes went before that Scott Arfield goal? How did you feel we started?
Yeah, no, I thought they started very well. As you say, I'd kind of, feels like so long ago now, I'd kind of forgotten about that Kent chance when he he just kind of cuts inside and hits it goalward, but it's not a million miles away. And when the Arfield goal came, I thought it was completely deserved. Up until that point, Rangers had really taken the game to Liverpool. They were winning just about every second ball. Liverpool did look good playing through them, as you say, but I don't think they were ever really sort of slicing Rangers open and creating a huge amount of chances. In fact, prior to their first goal, I can't really remember a chance. I might be forgetting, but no, I thought that Rangers were fully deserving of their goal. And I thought it was probably important as Liverpool probably felt it was to get through the first 20 minutes at Ibrox. Rangers probably felt it was important that they scored in that time, because that's when the crowd were the crowd are always with them, but that kind of first 20 minutes is really when Liverpool might have felt a wee bit nervy. And I'm not sure if that was the case. Liverpool have played in front of just about everywhere there is to play in front of. But started the game really well. I will say, even when it went 1-0, I don't think you would have necessarily been thinking, this is it. This is this is going to be the kind of kickstart and we're going to get the 3 points here. But yeah, as good a start as I've seen in the Champions League from them this season.
Yeah, I very much agree with you on that. I thought they started well. I thought maybe a few players looked a wee bit off at first 15, 20 minutes, maybe a wee bit of nerves. Maybe John Lundstrom, James Tavernier didn't really look at it. But as a team as a whole, they started well. We'll move on to the goal. Good bit of play around the right-hand side. It's flicked through to Scott Arfield again. He shows us that off the ball running that he's so good at. He breaks through the defensive line, and it's an absolutely tremendous finish from Scott Arfield. Personally, from where I was sitting, I felt he had no chance, and he's put that right in the bottom corner. Craig, what did you make of that goal? Did it surprise you that Arfield was probably the most advanced player on the pitch at that point? And what about the finish? What did you think?
All around, I thought it was a really good goal. I think it was symptomatic of how we were playing in that first 15, 20 minutes, actually, how we played for the first half, really, which was playing for the second ball, playing for that. I think effectively we allowed Liverpool, for want of a better phrase, to win that first header, and it was really the second ball was to where we were supposed to compete and where we were supposed to be physical and where the midfield was supposed to pick up the ball and then play us forward from there. And I think it was working. I think it was a tactic that was going really well. I think it was James Tavernier that kind of wins the ball back off Tsimikas. It kind of bounces off him into. I may have got the player wrong because obviously it was live in the game and I've not seen it back. But I think it was into Lundstrom, who then plays it inside to Arfield, who takes a great touch, to be fair, away from the defender, and he couldn't have placed it any better if he walked up and put it there himself. So it was a great finish. It was great to just score a goal in the Champions League and B just to feel Ibrox bouncing again. I think it did feel like a throwback to last season a wee bit in terms of the atmosphere and the feel-good factor around Ibrox. Little did we know what was to come, I guess, but at that moment it felt like we needed to take a chance at some point. We took the chance. Now let's see what we're made of. And but yeah, great goal and one that I would normally watch back over and over again.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be one of those ones you're going to watch back over and over again after that, unless you just start the YouTube video and that's it, cut it after a minute and that's enough. But yeah, I have to agree. Thought it was a really, really good goal, and yeah, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. I think you're right. I think Adam said that when that goal goes in, it's difficult to not get carried away. I think the stadium feels at that point that this is possible. We could really push on here and win. After maybe a few seconds, you're like, okay, I'll calm down a wee bit. But that the euphoria in that moment was just unbelievable. The stadium blew up, and yeah, there was a sense of relief as well because that goal came and it didn't feel like it was coming for a while based on the performances that we've seen so far. So yeah, that was a great goal. I'm going to move on a wee bit again. I'm trying to move everything together here. I've got a few notes. I thought Ben Davies was playing really well in the first half an hour. I thought he really came into the game tonight. Of course, I thought Goldson was good as well, and we can speak a wee bit about his injury, but I just thought Ben Davies was fantastic. He was dealing with the pressure. I think I've got a note here about Sakala. He was maybe poor on the right-hand side. Carvalho's broken side of the bends were around the post, and I think at that point, Liverpool were starting to kind of turn it up a wee bit. It's natural the first 20-25 minutes, and Rangers were really at it. Probably lose a wee bit out the game. It's natural. It's difficult to keep those levels up. And Adam, I'll come to you with this, and don't worry, Craig, there's plenty of Liverpool goals to talk about tonight, so I'll come back to you in the other ones, okay? But we'll start with Adam in this one. It's a set piece, which again is, I think we've been a lot better lately from set pieces. It's a ball into the front post. It's definitely something that Liverpool have worked on, by the way. Tsimikas, that fake taking it, he's definitely tried to unsettle us. I think that's something they've worked on. And yeah, it's a front post header by Firmino. What did you make of that, Adam? Is it disappointing to lose another set piece goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest, I think it goes back to how the corner was given away, which, if I remember rightly, was just a poor ball from again, like Craig, I wasn't at the game myself, but I've not seen it back. But I think it was Tavernier that gives the ball away, and then it's just a bit of a kind of mismatch going on. It's balls bouncing around, and then it eventually ends up out for a corner. So I think that's frustrating in the first instance. And then, as you say, I mean, anyone watching Rangers right now, every time someone gets a corner, you just feel a little bit. You get that feeling in your stomach that it's going wrong, I think. And like you say, I mean, at that level, if there's a way that you don't want to concede, then it's through set pieces. Because I think, I remember Ali McCoist, the opening game against Ajax, just losing the plot, conceding the first goal at a set piece, because don't really think it matters who, or I wouldn't say that, it doesn't matter who you're playing. Teams are better at set pieces than others, but, just defend your corners properly. If you're going to lose because Mohamed Salah plucks the ball out of the air from nowhere and rinses your fullback, he does that to the best players in the world. So there's no shame in that. But I think to lose it in that manner, and the fact was that up until that point, Liverpool really, really hadn't done anything. And then it just probably got their tails up from that point. I thought from that point on, Liverpool were pretty solid. I don't think they ever really looked threatened too much. And, they've got back into the game without really doing a huge amount. It's just a really simple flick on from Firmino. It's a quick header, and just incredibly frustrating, as you say, to lose it in that manner. And I think just really deflating, as I say, if someone smashes it in from 30 yards or something, or it's a real quality goal, I think the crowd would maybe then at that point think, right, well, these things happen. But it must just be so deflating if the corner comes in and it's just a quick header like that. Yeah,
Ross, just to come in on us defending set pieces, I actually think in recent weeks we've been pretty good at defending set pieces, particularly since Ben Davies has came into the team. I actually think we've been pretty solid on that front. I believe, and obviously I was in the club deck at the time. I'm not entirely sure who was marking Firmino. I get the impression from the comments it was James Tavernier. And it's disappointing to lose a goal at a corner. It's more disappointing to lose a goal at a corner that's not to a centre half header or something along those kind of lines. If it's Joel Matip, or if it's, I know he wasn't playing tonight, if it's Konate, if it's Virgil van Dijk that's smashing a header in, you can always be like, well, did we compete for the header and that kind of thing? But to see Roberto Firmino score a header, who's one of the smallest guys on the park, is quite galling. And I think it kind of took the wind out of our sails a wee bit at that point.
Yeah, I have to agree. I totally agree with the set pieces. We've definitely looked a lot better lately. You're absolutely bang on. I think what's probably frustrating, looking at it as a whole, that was an area, set pieces, under Gerrard and last season under Van Bronckhorst with Aribo. He was so good at defending that front post. That was Aribo's role, regardless whether you were defending or attacking in a set piece. He was there. He would either get the flick on for an attacking set piece or he would defend it. We've lost that a wee bit. Obviously, we've lost a little bit of height out of the team, but that's just very frustrating to lose a set piece in that manner. You're totally right. You would rather someone comes, bodying through and gets a great header in it and he puts it in the top corner. That one was tough to take. Adam summed it up perfectly. It was deflating. It was deflating because we felt at that point we were under a wee bit of pressure and you're just trying to ride these things out and get through it. And obviously we weren't able to. We'll move on to the next part. I've actually got here in my notes that the next kind of 10 minutes were quite flat. I didn't feel like either team were really putting any pressure on each other. I think it was more of, right, we've got, both teams were happy. They're probably going into the break at 1-1 and they were going to take that. I've got a note here about, I think there was a break from Antonio Cholak, really good interception from John Lundstrom. He's running down the right-hand side and he plays a ball across and it's just, there's too much on it and Ryan can't get to it. Again, I'm not really expecting much from that position, to be honest, from Antonio Cholak. He's a number 9. I'm not expecting him to bend in a ball from that point. But yeah, we'll go to half-time. I suppose I should mention it there. I suppose the Goldson injury, I was going to sum that up at halftime because it was so close, but we'll come to you on this one, Adam, the Conor Goldson one. Maybe your overall thoughts on what it meant for the game and how do you feel at that point, but also about, going forward this season, how you feel about it. Conor Goldson looks like he makes a wee bit of mistake. He tries to head the ball back. He's just trying to recover, I think, and he's stretched. And I'm not sure if it's his knee or his thigh, to be honest, from where I sit. It's very difficult to see. But I have to say, I was standing up with my hands on my head at that point. I was panicked. what did you make of that? How do you feel about it? It's something that worries me personally. So what do you feel?
Yeah, so I think just on the injury itself, I think I could see, I'm not going to stand here and pretend that I know, but you know when you just see a player go down sometimes and you can just tell straight away that it's something quite serious. And I mean, I think Nunez has that kind of unique combo of being quite powerful but also quite fast, and you can see, I think, that Goldson only just gets it clear. So from the minute he went down, it obviously didn't look good, and obviously Goldson's reputation precedes him when it comes to his injury record, which is more or less flawless. So whenever he goes down, I think it's always going to be nervy. To come to the first point on the game, I thought it was a huge loss because he's such a leader and such a presence in that back line that, it was going to be a difficult ask for Rangers to get anything out of that game with their best, well, they're not start that debate at this time of night, but they're leading centre half in that sense on the pitch, never mind when he wasn't there. I think, I was watching it with my brother, and I think at that point he really felt like, his mind immediately kind of turned to what that meant going forward, which I think kind of sums up the game really, because I think when he went off, it has such an impact on the whole team and the organisation, and probably has an impact on Tavernier as well, I would suggest. On that right hand side, he knows he hasn't got Goldson next to him helping out. We don't know what it is. I don't know. I've not read any comments from Van Bronckhorst. I don't even know if the club knows yet, if he still has to be assessed. So it would be a huge loss for Rangers to lose Conor Goldson, just because these last 3-4 years there's effectively rarely been a starting 11 which hasn't got his name on it. So it leaves King and Davies as your only two fit centre halves, plus James Sands, obviously, who we've seen play there. We know that Suter and Hollander have got their injury records. So, yeah, I think, to be honest, when I seen Goldson went down injured, my immediate concern wasn't so much what Liverpool were going to do, because I think there's a chance they could have perhaps run riot anyway. It immediately kind of turned to looking forward in the league and just hoping that it wasn't that serious, which, I think speaks to, although he has his critics, I think it speaks to what a presence he really is in the Rangers team, that you immediately start to kind of think, oh dear, where are we going here?
Yeah, I felt exactly the same as you when he went down. It was that there was like maybe about a 10-20 second period where I genuinely didn't care about the result of this game anymore. Mm-hmm. It was, I need to know if this guy could just get back on his feet. There was panic. And I think most people, it's sometimes difficult to see in the ground, but I think most people knew in the ground it was serious. The way he went down, the way he put his arm up, you thought, no, that's not great. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that. I'll put my cards on the table. He's far and away our best centre back, and I think we'll see that now. To be honest with you, I think you'll see the loss of his presence in that back line. So yeah, it's worrying times. I'm not gonna lie. We'll just move on to half time. Craig, obviously you can give your thoughts on the Conor Goldson injury as well, but half time, got a few notes written here. I think we were good, pressing well in stages. Like whenever we had a good opportunity to put some pressure on Liverpool, we were. I thought they came into it late in the second half, the second part of the first half. But overall, I felt Rangers probably just edged that first half. And, the Conor Goldson injury was there, but I felt good about the team at that point. How did you feel at half time?
Yeah, at half time, I felt like we were definitely in the game, which was more than we could have said for any of the other games that we'd had so far in the Champions League. So it felt like it was progress. It felt like that actually being more attacking and being a bit more open from the outset and being a bit more in Liverpool's faces was the right thing to be doing. I was just hoping for more of the same really as we headed into the second half. The Conor Goldson injury is a big blow. I thought Leon King did fine when he came on. I don't think he shirked any responsibility or anything like that. I think he's going to take on some big pressure on his shoulders over the coming weeks, I think, to be honest, in that win. But I thought he coped with tonight fine. My worry about Goldson is just the impact he has on the mentality of the team as well, and driving standards and all of that sort of stuff. I think we saw in the second half those drop. But yeah, at half time I was looking forward a wee bit nervous about the second half, because we know how good Liverpool can be. And I said to Kyle, one of the other podders, at half time, I was like, all it takes is half a chance for Liverpool to score, whereas we need maybe 2 or 3 clear-cut chances to score another one. And I think that's where the realisation of, we've played one good half, but can we put 2 together? And obviously we'll come on to the fact that we couldn't. But you were hoping, it's almost like you get to the stage where let's take it in 10-minute increments. Let's get to 55 minutes, let's get to 65 minutes, let's get to 75 minutes and see where we are and evaluate at that point. I think we just about got to 55 minutes. And then, Liverpool took the lead. I don't know if you want to come on to that second goal at this point or where you
let's stick with it. I will ask you about that. You know, I'll just touch on some of the things I was thinking about when I felt Liverpool did settle into the second half really quickly and we didn't. And that probably just shows the level again, you know, that they're coming out and they know it needs to be done in the second half. They've went in 1-1 at the break. I'm sure Jurgen Klopp wasn't happy with that, and they've came out, they settled really quickly. They had a free kick in the edge of the box. I think Tsimikas blasted it over, but at that point they'd built up really well, and they looked like they were settling in. We'll touch on the goal. I'll stay with you on this one. This is obviously the goal for Liverpool to take the lead at 2-1. I think there's a drop ball in the middle of the park. I can't remember who Barisic pushes onto, but he loses the flick on. And Joe Gomez picks up the ball, who, by the way, I have to say, I thought was tremendous for Liverpool tonight. Joe Gomez completely nullified Ryan Kent. He was great, and probably shows you the level that Trent Alexander-Arnold actually is, that this guy can't get a game. Anyway, steams forward. He plays a lovely curling ball into the box. Firmino, you know, it looks like he's doing it in slow motion. He's got all the time in the world and he just puts it through. I think it's through McGregor's legs and it's 2-1. How did you see that goal? Was it a bit of a killer for you? You know, where did you see the game going after that?
Yeah, I think as we head into the second half, I think, like you say, it was immediately obvious Liverpool had taken it up a notch. I think actually when I spent about 5 minutes watching Liverpool to see what they'd done differently, because I almost thought they'd changed formation slightly, or I thought they'd done something to their team because we were struggling to have as much space as we did in the first half. And actually, I think all they did was they pushed about 10 yards higher up the park. I think that's simply what they did. Our defence wasn't getting as much time on the ball as they were previously. When goal kicks were taken, Liverpool, instead of standing off us, were right at the edge of our box and almost pressing the same way we do in the Scottish Premiership. And I think that instantly put the pressure on our players, and I think that's partly why we saw us starting to panic a bit in possession. But like you say, Borna Barisic, I think, actually played well up until this point and then completely lost the plot. But he absolutely sold the jerseys. He'd no need to go in and chase that ball. If he stands where he is, the ball flicks on and he's standing there. He's standing exactly where the ball lands, and he takes control of the situation. But he goes in, he's caught in no man's land. And yeah, Joe Gomez, like you say, had a great game. He nullified Ryan Kent, and then in the second half, he saw his power and pace going forward. I actually thought he was a centre half. I don't know if he's. I think he's naturally a centre half, but he can't play right back.
Yeah, he is naturally a centre half. Yeah,
but to have that pace and that ability to take on that right back role in that sense and play the quality of ball he did across as well to Firmino, I don't think we can take anything away from the quality of that ball across. And yeah, I don't know. I saw John Lundstrom having a go. I don't know if it was at Leon King or if it was at James Tavernier. I imagine it was probably James Tavernier, just from I'm not sure he'd have that big a go at Leon King, given his age and experience level and that side of things. But I think, yeah, it was a quality goal. Disappointing to lose it in the manner we did. Maybe not surprising that Liverpool scored it in the end, but I think you can always pick faults in what's happening. Borna Barisic is the main one. A bit disappointed that he's free at the back post, but his pace just getting away from our defence is something that was always a risk.
Yeah, I think the Borna Barisic in that position, I'm glad you picked up on that, because I think that that enthusiasm to press there probably shows the difference between our level and the top level, and that pressing isn't just about running around as much as you can and putting pressure. It's about understanding when to do it and when to leave your position. And that was just not the time to do it. And he's left so much space behind him. And these teams will punish you, as we've seen. Adam, we'll move on a wee bit. I'm going to try and squeeze these all together, right? Because there's a lot of goals now. And we were speaking before we came on air. It has become a bit of a blur. You know, sitting in that stadium, it's probably a bit of shock at the same time. You know the level you're playing, but you can't believe that a team are putting 6-7 past Rangers at Ibrox. So try and squeeze this bit together. You know, Ryan Jack goes down injured at this point. I think it's just after the goal. Again, I think that was a big loss, and I'm happy for you to talk about that. This is I don't know how you feel. We'll come on to the third goal now. This was the killer for me. Probably because I felt at that point the game was still, you know, recoverable. At least I didn't expect us to go on and win, but you know, you could potentially get a draw. If it's the right goal I'm thinking about, because it is a bit of a blur. I think the ball goes back to McGregor. He is under a wee bit of pressure, but maybe not a lot of pressure, and he just fires the ball straight down the middle, and Fabinho just completely laps it up, gets control, plays it through, and a wee bit of interchange, and the finish from Darwin Núñez, who I thought had quite a difficult game up to that point, is just fantastic. Bottom corner, never saving it. I think a lot of people on the ground thought it was offside because it was a weird, everyone was looking at each other. But
yeah, again, I would say that's Borna Barisic, which I think, as I said, from the second goal, he just sort of fell apart a wee bit. I think he was tracking his runner. I think was it Fabinho that played the ball through? I think Fabinho effectively dummied a pass, which none of our defence read apart from Borna Barisic, who was about 5 yards beyond the rest of our defenders, who then subsequently played everyone on side when the ball did come through, and made it possible, and it just made us look a bit stupid. And then he had his part to play in the fourth goal as well, I guess, which we'll come on to, but I've kind of stolen that from you, Adam. So anyway. I'm fine for you to jump in. I think I'm like at that recovery, you know, the emotional recovery stage. I'm kind of pushing everything to the back of my mind. Don't really want to think about it anymore. So it's a bit of a blur. But Adam, how did you feel at that goal? Was that the kind of sucker punch for you? Was that the point you maybe felt, you know, this could maybe get away from us now?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I think it was the killer, and I think it was interesting because at that point I think Klopp's subs were a bit ready to come on. I don't know if he maybe felt he still wasn't happy at that point, because as you say, it's 2-1, and even last week I think we saw, although Rangers were not in the game, they did go up the pitch and almost score. And you know, if it's 2-0, you know, it could have easily made things a lot more nervy for Liverpool. But I think, and Craig spoke well about the Gomez goal. I think with this goal as well, there is a balance to be struck in, yes, Rangers could do things a lot better, but also maybe too soon to use the word admire straight after the game, but just appreciate the quality of players that you're playing against. I mean, when's the last time Rangers played a team domestically who, if McGregor gives the ball away there, I mean, I think it's Fabinho intercepts it, he plays it to Carvalho. They're so switched on to realise that Núñez is offside to start with, so he plays it to Firmino, who, I mean, was just outstanding, to be fair to him, and he flicks it, and Núñez puts in such a clinical finish. I think there is a kind of balance to be struck there, whereas when I was watching it on TV, you know, you see that and you think, well, yes, Rangers could do better, but also like the sheer quality to just recognise how and move the ball that quickly, I think has to be taken into account. I know it's obviously still quite raw and still quite frustrating, but I do think that is a factor. To go back to the Ryan Jack injury, because I know that we kind of maybe didn't pick up on that. Obviously, Ryan Jack has his injury issues. I don't think it's necessarily a huge surprise that we're having this conversation, but I do think that he is probably the only player Rangers have who can do what he does, that kind of just nicking the ball away from players and, you know, just mopping things up essentially when it needs to be done. It's not the prettiest of roles, but it is one that I think he does very well when he's fully fit. And, you know, there's a kind of wider discussion to be had there, I think, in terms of if we maybe look at recruitment. I don't think you could turn to the bench and bring on a like for like player exactly with Ryan Jack, which seems crazy given that the club know his injury record. It's not a criticism of Ryan Jack. The guy's body clearly lets him down. He's not making that happen himself, but the club have to be prepared for it. And I would suggest that tonight they weren't. But yeah, as you said, the third goal was definitely the killer. But to be fair, I mean, if you're up against a team that's as quality and as clinical as that, I mean, it got to a point where it didn't matter when Rangers gave the ball away. It felt like Liverpool just had the tails up and they were going to score.
Yeah, Ross, I think going by the comments, I think people are keen for us not to go through every goal, and that's fine with me because I don't remember every goal, so that's absolutely fine with me. But I think it's fair to talk about overall in general our performance, and that's in that last 20 minutes or 25 minutes. I realise you're the host, but I'll ask you a question.
Go for it.
How that last 20 minutes, to me, sitting in that stadium, felt like whenever Liverpool went forward, they were going to score. Felt like the midfield had stopped tracking runners. Felt like the defence were a bit at sixes and sevens in terms of what they could do and how much they could actually impact what was going on. And it felt like between Diego Jota and Mo Salah, they had the freedom of Ibrox to do whatever they wanted at will. And obviously they did, scoring I think 3 assists for Jota and three goals for Salah in the space of 15 minutes, maybe, I guess. I lost a bit of track of time as well. But in terms of our performance, why do you think we dropped off? Why do you think we simply gave up?
I don't ever like saying a professional footballer has ever gave up. So no, I don't think we've given up. I think the team probably lost a little belief in the first half when Conor Goldson leaves the pitch, in my opinion. I think that's how big a player he is. We spoke earlier about the kind of mentality that he brings. It's not just about his on the ball characteristics. It's what he does off the ball. He organises the whole defence. He's always very vocal. You can hear him. Him and McGregor are always the two that you can hear. And I think we lost a wee bit of belief when we lost Goldson. And I think it's the third goal. I think most players in that pitch probably felt it was preventable. That doesn't excuse the reaction to the goal and what happened after it, but I think they've just lost complete belief and they've not felt that they've had a chance. And again, I've said it a few times now talking about Liverpool, that this is another thing that shows their quality. They are ruthless. They are not going to take their foot off the gas and think, oh, we'll take that 3-1. They've got guys coming off the bench right tonight that probably Jurgen Klopp was feeling that he could give a rest. He's brought on Thiago, Salah, Andy Robertson, and Diogo Jota. These guys are all arguably world-class players, right? And these guys will be coming on tonight feeling like he benched me for a Champions League game. I'm going to show him. And Salah's come on, he scored a hat-trick in 5 minutes. You know,
I think, Ross, I was going to jump in there. I think that was definitely the case with Mohamed Salah.
Yeah.
Which, like, 100%.
Yeah, that's what I felt as well. Like, I could feel the way he was kicking the ball about at half-time, Mohamed Salah. I could feel the frustration in him, that he wasn't on the park. And it was 1-1. And he's obviously felt, you know what, I'm going to come on and I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter what game we're playing in, I want to play. And that just shows it's everything involved in being a top-level professional and top-level athlete in any sport, to be honest with you. They're at the top of everything, physically, technically, the mentality of it, they're top at everything. And I'm glad we're not going to go through the 3 goals. I mean, I'll ask you what you felt in that moment, but we won't go through the 3 goals. But it just highlights perfectly, you know, the gulf in class, like how far away we are from that level.
I think as well, when you look at our team, even at half time, we're looking at the players warming up that are on our bench, and you're kind of like, who would you bring on? Who's really going to impact it? Can they keep up the level of performance that we've been going at? You're looking at Morelos, you're looking at Matondo, potentially Scott Wright. I know there's a lot of mixed feelings towards Scott Wright and stuff like that, but outside of that, you're not really trusting Tillman at this stage in this kind of game. There's a lot of younger players on the bench. Steve Davis is 37, coming into this game. Is he someone you would actively bring off the bench unless you absolutely had to, like we did. We're kind of looking at the sort of strength and depth of our squad, and it's not really there for this level. We're struggling with our first 11 at this level, never mind our backups or our substitutes. And I think the question comes back: could we have done more after the PSV game to try and prepare ourselves for that? Potentially, we could have spent a bit more money, but are we going to be able to attract and spend the amount of money needed to bring the level of quality player that we need to impact these games? Probably not. You probably need players to develop into playing in this stage, and I guess that's been a whole part of the argument. But I just think he looked at our bench at half time and who could we bring on to impact the game? Not really sure there was anyone. I'm sure Alfredo Morelos coming on earlier would have had any impact at all.
I think, sorry Ross, just to jump in.
No, jump in.
Like, just to kind of emphasise the gulf there, is just when you mentioned Scott Wright there, my mind kind of cast back to the Scottish Cup final. So, like, you're talking about who do we bring on here, and that emphasises the gulf there, where I remember back to that game, and it's kind of an odd comparison to make with this one, but, he brought on Ryan Jack and Scott Wright, and they both changed the game. They won the final. Whereas tonight, we're looking at it and thinking, they've just got absolutely no chance here, not even considering it, which, really speaks to that difference, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what you've touched on there, Craig, in terms of could we have done more after PSV, I think that's a whole other podcast in itself, to be honest, about recruitment and where we're going as a club. And I agree with you. I just don't know personally if this is the result to base those arguments on, because the level you're playing at here, it's very difficult to compete at this level, and that doesn't excuse it. But it's hard for me to be too, of course, I'm gutted about the result, but I wouldn't say I'm annoyed. It's just there's maybe a realization with where we are right now, and we just have to suck it up. Unfortunately, I've seen the comparison with Club Brugge a lot. I know we discussed it in our group chat earlier. Club Brugge have been in the Champions League for the past 6-7 years. The TV deal that they have in their country is vastly superior to ours. It doesn't compare, unfortunately, that, we are coming into this for the first time in 12 years. We just don't have the financial backing. That doesn't excuse it, by the way, at all. But there's got to be a balance with these things. There's got to be a wee bit of realism. What we'll do is, I'm conscious of the time, but I want to hear how you both feel going forward from this. We'll just quickly sum up the game. Obviously, Salah scores the hat-trick and Harvey Elliott gets a goal. So yeah, it was a disappointing night for us. 7 goals at Ibrox is shocking, to be honest, and I fear for the manager in terms of criticism based on this. We'll stick with you on this one first, Adam. Do you see this having an effect on the team domestically? That is a heavy defeat. Do you think that this is something that the team just have to try and shake off quickly, or do you think this is something that could potentially linger for a while? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm trying to take up too much time, but I think honest answer, I'm not that worried about how much of an impact it'll have domestically. As you say, it's a heavy defeat, but they lost. They beat Hearts 4-0 and then went to Anfield, and let's face it, never got a kick of the ball, really. And I know this might seem like a wild take, and again, it's quite raw, but I would argue that there was probably more positives to take from that game, despite losing 7-1, than there was at Anfield, purely on the basis that they did at least have a go at Liverpool in that first 45 minutes. I think if you analyse it over the full 90 minutes, yes, you don't want to lose 7-1, of course you don't, especially at home. But I don't think domestically it should have a huge impact, because there's such a big difference. I mean, it's hard to actually find a word to describe it. I mean, Rangers are going to have Motherwell set up with 10 men behind the ball, and no disrespect to any Motherwell fans that are listening at 11:30 at night, but they're not going to have the quality of player running at them. It's I think arguably more than any other club in the Champions League, the gulf between their domestic league and then who they're coming up against in the Champions League is so vast. I mean, you look at Liverpool. I mean, where are they in the Premier League? 10th. You look at what someone like Brighton did to them a couple of weeks ago, and they're flying high in the Premier League at the minute. But I think last season they were about 8th or 9th. So that's what they're up against every weekend in comparison to Rangers. So I think it's a whole different game. yes, the manager will come in for a lot of criticism. Obviously, it's very important, I think, that they go out and beat Motherwell with a performance as much as a result to try and really put this to bed. And I don't think Champions League's on next week, because I think they play Dundee at home next week. So, we kind of don't have that domestic, and then it's back to kind of dreading who they're up against in the Champions League. So, like you say, I think as disappointing as it is, it's a realisation of the gulf. And at this point, I don't think there's much else that we can do apart from accept it and move on back to league action.
Yeah, that was a good summary. I think you've summed it up perfectly. You've probably said exactly how I feel. Craig, we'll come to you on this. We'll let you close this off. But I'm going to caveat this. I'm going to give you a wee extra, because I have seen this when I've been coming home. A lot of people talking about the manager's position. How do you feel about this result going forward? And also, do you feel that Van Bronckhorst is under pressure? Could this result be fatal for him?
Well, this was actually how I was going to take it on, so it's almost like you read my mind. So effectively, I've seen a lot of people claiming for Gio to be sacked and all that sort of stuff. Never heard more ridiculous statement in my life, to be honest. I think that's absolutely insane. We are currently 2 points behind in the league. We're starting to build up a bit of steam in that sense, while the team across our side of the city are starting to struggle. We've got a run of games here that we can really put the foot down and start to motor and put a run together. We've our last 2 games in the league, we've won 4-0. I mean, what is there to complain about that? I think the performances have been getting better in the league as well over the last couple of weeks. It appears that we have worked on quite a bit over the international break. I was a wee bit concerned after the Dundee United game just before the international break, because that was a poor performance. But since then, we've been motoring in that sense. I think tonight, like I said at the start, I don't know anyone who wasn't hoping that we would have a wee bit more of a go tonight against Liverpool. We saw the results of the more defensive approach, playing the 5 at the back. In the first 3 games, we weren't really creating any chances. We weren't really giving ourselves any opportunities. We weren't really even threatening to create a chance. Tonight, we had a bit more of a go. First half, we were really competing. We scored our first goal in the Champions League group stage. We created a couple more really good chances. Scott Arfield had one in the first half. I think it was just after Liverpool equalised. And there were a few more kind of half chances and ones that just a slightly better final ball, and we would have been really in with a chance of scoring. But if you open up that way against a team of this quality, then I don't really know what people expect. I don't really know. I assume, I'd like to assume that people know enough about football that these teams can rip you apart with less than a second's notice and with ease. And we saw that tonight. And I don't think that's on the manager. He continued to try and play the way that we did in the Europa League run last year. And I think ultimately a combination of injuries and tiredness paid for us at the end, and a bit of attitude as well. But I think in terms of the Champions League, that's got to be completely separate in terms of judging Gio and judging the management team. And I've almost got to, I know it's difficult to do it, especially after a night like tonight, you've almost got to just ignore the Champions League results and take the fact that we got to the Champions League, not through the easy route, but by playing 2 decent teams in USG and PSV. We went and we beat PSV away from home, which is no mean feat in itself. And we need to see that as the achievement. We've matched Celtic from a monetary perspective, or got as close to them as we're going to get from a monetary perspective from the Champions League. I said jokingly, I think it was after the Napoli game, just give us the money and leave us alone. It's still very much how I feel about the Champions League, but you can't judge Gio on these performances against these teams with resources beyond what we could even dream of, and then look at our team and go, well, it's the manager's fault. Well, it's not the manager's fault. It's just like we've spoken about during this podcast. a sheer difference in quality. Liverpool have got a £35 million fourth choice striker, was it? That was said earlier in the podcast. I mean, that's ridiculous. Our main striker at the moment cost us 1.8 million. I mean, like just to illustrate the gap. So where you judge Gio is domestic form, it's in the league, it's results domestically in the league and the two cups, and that's where he is going to be judged. Currently 2 points behind Celtic. Could have been better, but also could have been worse. Ultimately, if Willie Collum has a normal refereeing performance against Hibs, we've had a pretty good start to the season, and I don't think anyone would argue against that. Result at Celtic Park remains galling and sticks in the throat, but you're looking ahead to the one at New Year, and you're like, that's our chance to correct it, and that's our chance to show we're gathering speed, and we're gathering the pace of good performances, pulling them together. And between now and the World Cup is the real chance for us. If we go and win every game up between now and the World Cup, we're going to be in a great position heading into the second half of the season. And that's where Gio needs to be judged. You can't judge him on nights like tonight.
Yeah, for the most part, I agree with everything, really. I don't think you can judge him on the Champions League performances. We have to try and look at this as a bonus. It doesn't mean we're in here, just to take part. We want to put our stamp in the competition, but it was never ever going to be easy. And we're seeing that now. We've been humbled tonight, in my opinion. We've been shown that you're not just going to show up after that Europa League run last year and do it all over again. These teams are going, this is a different level. You're not going to do that to us. We've been humbled. Adam, I'll give you the last word on this, because I don't want to end the show without you getting your chance to either slaughter the manager or defend him. So how do you feel? Do you agree with Craig and myself, or are you a wee bit more the other way, that these performances can't continue to happen, really?
No,
regardless of the competition. Sorry,
I have to say I'm in complete agreement with everything that Craig said there. I think he summed it up really well. Listen, I will caveat it slightly with the last half an hour tonight. I do think really is poor. I'm not sure how much of it is down to the manager, in the sense that, again, the goals are all a blur, but I think there was two where it's just aimless balls getting punted into the middle of the park. I mean, I'm not quite sure how we blame the manager for that, because at that point tactics have gone out the window. The players have to just step up and take a bit of responsibility and try and shut up shop as best they can. I appreciate they're playing against some of the best players in the world, so that is difficult. But in terms of his position, as Craig says, if Willie Collum just acts normally, they get that win at Hibs, and those 2 points are made up. Yes, the Celtic Park result is difficult to take, and it remains to be seen if he can really, domestically, I don't think he's got a win against Celtic yet. I think it's just that Scottish Cup semi-final, which was a big result at the time. We shouldn't forget he has shown that he can get big results domestically, and it's a slightly strange season where we obviously have this it's kind of really split up into sections, where we had that first international break, and then we're going to have the World Cup, and then we'll be back. So I think if he can win most of the games up until the World Cup, say there's maybe one slip up in there, just being realistic. I'm not saying you obviously don't want it to happen, but no, for me, you have to treat it separately, and I know that's difficult. I know it is, because you want them to win, and you watch them, and it doesn't matter who they're playing, you do want them to win. But you look at the financial gap, and the gap that then creates in the quality on the pitch and on the bench, and I don't really care who the manager is. I honestly believe that with those resources, okay, the last half an hour shouldn't be happening, but I don't think we're going to see hugely different results, and don't want to end on a massive sort of pessimistic note, but I can't see us having a hugely different conversation in terms of post-match pods with the remaining two Champions League games. So it's all about domestic games for me when it comes to judging Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. Sorry,
Ross, just to jump in, I see a lot of people in the comments saying that a Europa League final team doesn't go on and lose 7-1 in a game like this, and that's probably correct in most occasions, but we also sold Calvin Bassey, we sold Joe Aribo, we've lost quite a few players to injury from that team as well. So you can't just compare apples to apples in that sense. I don't think it works in that way. We're also trying, there's also a massive step up in quality. You see that with like Eintracht Frankfurt, who we played in that game, you see how difficult they're finding it as well. So I don't think it's fair to say that. I get that we're not happy with these results, and I'm not happy either. But saying that Gio is taking us backwards, and in that sense, given that he probably didn't lose Calvin Bassett by choice, and he probably didn't lose Joe Aribo by choice, and whether he was, like you say, Ross, earlier on, it's a whole other conversation about recruitment and that side of things. And generally, we need to buy players who then develop as part of our team rather than come in ready-made. And I think that's kind of the point we're at just now. We've got a lot of new players came in, but we've got a lot of the old guard that probably are in their final season with us and potentially should have been in their final season last year. So just wanted to pick up on that point and say that I completely disagree.
Yep, that's fair. You're allowed your place. I think you both made some great points there. I think overall, both of you are pointing towards we just have to be realistic and we have to try and separate the competitions. And listen, that is very difficult. And I've been on this podcast before, really having a strong view on Giovanni Van Bronckhorst with domestic performances. I've not felt they've been good enough, but I've also been on this podcast pretty much defending them when it comes to the Champions League, because I feel like I have a good understanding of the gap. And I'm sure we all watch a lot of the Premier League football, and you can sit back and you watch it in your house and you go, oh, these guys don't look that great, but listen, once you see them in the flesh and they play against your own team, you realise how good these guys are, and how good that league is. So listen, it's been a tough night. I'm going to close it here because I think one of us will probably start greeting at some point if we keep going. So I'm keen to close the show before that happens. Thanks for joining me, Craig. Thanks for joining me, Adam. That's not been easy. So I appreciate that, and thanks everyone in the comments getting involved. I know it's and I've seen a lot of strong opinions tonight, and listen, that's what it's all about. We want everyone to get involved and share their opinion and feel part of this. So please continue to do so. Please subscribe to the channel if you can. That really helps us. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, or enjoyed it's probably not the right word tonight, but enjoyed discussing the result is probably the best way to put it. And yeah, you can find us all the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Remember, we have the Friday bulletin at 7 p.m, which they'll definitely go through this result probably a wee bit more detailed than tonight. We probably skimmed over a few things based on the time, and we'll have the Sunday podcast at 8 p.m. as well. So please tune in for that. And thank you. We'll see you in the next one.